Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mary Electra for doing such a wonderful job setting the tone in this room. I mean, I want her to come to my house and do that every morning. Wouldn't that be great? You could just do anything, you know? Meter maid, nothing could get you down that day. But and that was the most remarkable demonstration. I've never seen that before, and I think we need a lot more of that in our lives. So thank you, Mary Electra, for that. Secondly, Brian Hall, it's amazing that this even exists. I mean, I remember when I first heard that there was a conspiracy convention. I'm like, that must be impossible to organize. How do you get people to trust you? You know, how does that even work? That's like having an anarchist convention. We're going to meet all at this one place at this one time. Oh no, that's not going to happen. So yeah, herding cats, more like. So I was really like intrigued at how an organization of so many free thinkers would even be possible, and to see it put on so beautifully. I was here for the first time last year, and I was a little nervous because I'm a sci-fi horror guy. You know, I hosted Cinema Insomnia, which is a syndicated program. We're on in 23 cities. I've been doing it for 10 years. But we were on in San Jose on KTEH at like 2 in the morning. Maybe some of you have a fuzzy memory of hearing my voice going, "Look into the hypnotic eye. Time now to enter Mr. Lobo's domain. Open your mind to the possibility that they're not bad movies, just misunderstood." We'd show things like The Brain That Wouldn't Die and The Other Brain That Wouldn't Die and Journey from the Planet Beyond the Brain That Wouldn't Die, and you know, I always was interested in conspiracies and always interested in UFOs and always interested in the paranormal and always interested in questioning, wondering, thinking, challenging myself. But I didn't know how I would really fit in that world of conspiracies. I host science fiction horror movies. I'm mostly known as a horror movie host. How many people remember what a horror movie host is? Okay, then you're old, first of all. People, 25-year-olds don't know who Elvira is, you know. So it's kind of a lost art. Bob Wilkins' Creature Features was huge in the Bay Area. He was my mentor. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself right now. We've got time for that tonight, maybe at the banquet where I'll be presenting Alternative 3, which we're going to present the documentary, which is somewhat in the area of science fiction, but there is more truth to that documentary than is believed. So we'd like to talk to you about that. My researcher, Olaf Phillips, will be providing the details about Alternative 3, and it should be a fun event. It's a cult classic, and it will be a lot of fun. But since we're running short on time, I'd like to get into our first speaker, because I'm very interested in what he's got to say. This is H. Michael Sweeney. H. Michael Sweeney is an author, consultant, specializing in New World Order crimes and privacy security. He is best known for his nonfiction Professional Paranoid series and the Fatal Rebirth series, a historical and future look at the New World Order. He also offers consulting and intervention services to victimized persons targeted by groups. Mr. Sweeney is currently establishing the Free Will Society to help targeted individuals and create a solution for those needing ultra-secure and flexible email alternatives. So basically, real life is becoming a sci-fi horror movie. And I'd like to welcome our very first guest. Please come on up and join us. H. Michael Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Lobo, and I want to thank Brian as well. And the spook that's in the woodwork. And who is the CIA agent that's here today? I know you're here. I found your hat. Oh, there you are. Yeah, you got your spare. I am billed quite often on radio shows as an expert in personal privacy and security matters, particularly political control technology, which is the new term for mind control. I like to say that I'm really not truly an expert. There are no such things unless they happen to be the ones using and working on developing the technology. We don't really have a good insight to that technology until well after the fact. So we're always well behind the curve. But I do try to provide consulting and direct intervention helps to people who are targeted, and many of my books actually address those kinds of things. I would like to say that the Free Will Society is something that's a new concept. It's really intended to help targeted individuals in a real direct way. The ultimate expression of that might be even to the point of having the equivalent of a SWAT team that would swoop down on a city and using sophisticated equipment detect and provide documentation to prove targeting is taking place and result in legal action. And additionally, I would envision a hotel or some other facility that could provide safe haven for people who are in the most dire straits of targeting. Electronic targeting can be a genuine physical and mental torture. And of course, they have other little tricks to work on finances and other aspects of one's life. So I'm sure everybody here has heard about this. The number of groups that are going to be here at the other tables today talking about various aspects of being targeted. If you've not been exposed to that, if you've never heard of political control technology, then you are already a victim, because it does include everything from political disinformation through media all the way up to the traditional mind control technologies. But enough about that. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. If I talk about my book set, Fatal Rebirth, it is a look at history, both past and future, starting from about 1947 going forward into time. And in my 10-year research for that book, I discovered that there seemed to be linkages between the various dark bumps in our political history that weren't particularly known or talked about in any other sources. And I came up with the general notion that I call the unified conspiracy theory that says, what if all these things were directly linked and they had a logical, stepwise goal? What would that goal be? And I came up with what I thought would be a reasonable goal and said, well, what is the test of a theory? If you know the logical steps and you know the goal, you should be able to predict what the next few steps were. And in Fatal Rebirth, those steps did evolve. I actually did a screenplay based on Fatal Rebirth, which I published on my website in 1999, that depicted the downing of the World Trade Center by aircraft through terrorism and resulting in Middle East oil wars. And I also placed a warning call to back-channel contact in the Secret Service, advising that Ross Perot would likely be forced out of the election by an assassination attempt or a threat thereof against himself or his family. And as you may know, he actually did withdraw from the primary the night of the Colorado primary. If he had not withdrawn, he would have been on the ballot because he won that primary. But he withdrew that night, and so he did not make the election. I found out months later from my back channel that the reason was mailed anthrax attacks against his family. So sometimes you can look at the past and you can predict the future. And that's why in my slide here I talk about being a future technologist. So we'll go ahead and get to work here, and hopefully we'll learn something new. How many people, by show of hands please, are already a little bit familiar with RFID technology? With the lights in my eyes, can't quite tell, but it looks like about half. And MEMS, less. Sims, less. Well, some of those are actually going to be easier for you to grasp. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm a little unused to my notebook here, so you'll forgive me if I'm looking down a lot. Basically, we're talking about technology crossroads. We're going to talk about what they are and how they're used for good, if they are used for good, how they could be used for bad, and what drives their use, who drives their use or benefits from bad use. That's the part that concerns us most. And of course, what are the consequences to you, not just to society, but to each other? And how could we fight back? Now, these crossroad technology paradigms involve continual chaos because they are continually upgrading and replacing the old with the new. We see that particularly in political control technology. And the crossroads that we're talking about for these that support this chaos is microelectronics and nanotech, computers and data communications, corporate and government mechanisms, military and law enforcement policy procedures, and education and intelligence methods sharing. And finally, we might put some question marks on this, religion and the New World Order, because if you read my Fatal Rebirth set, and for the matter, MC Realities on political control technology, I think you'll find that Satanism is a very key component. Now, what fears should we address? And as you see the theme here, each of these things has 6, and we come up with 666. What could we lose if technology is abused? Loss of financial stability, privacy, free will, civic freedoms, national sovereignty. How many have heard of the Canamex Highway? Oh, you're in for an education. And unfortunately, I can't give you that education here tonight. We will touch on it ever so briefly. But the Canamex Highway is the most immediate threat you face. It will take away national sovereignty in a very official way and open up the borders between Canada and Mexico. The Chinese and the Mexicans will be partnered, and they will be taking away American jobs, and the entire western seaboard will lose its port facilities in a very significant degree, probably 70–80%. And there are many, many issues associated with this, which are conspiratorial in nature and had to do directly with the New World Order's intention to divide the globe into regional European community-type markets. The North American Union is a reality in our near future if Canamex succeeds. And loss of health or life. Now, the specific technology we're going to talk about first is RFID, after the summary here. And these are the kinds of things that you're probably familiar with RFID. It's used in inventory anti-theft alarm tags. This was the first use of it commercially. Although it actually stems from animal tracking systems. You'll find it in retail products used in material management. You go to the grocery store today and you spend $100, I guarantee you're bringing home RFID tags. The most common of products, razor blades, deodorants, lipstick, you name it, Pampers, they all have RFID tags. Just one company alone has ordered 600 million. You find it in door lock and alarm cards sometimes, depends on the technology. You'll find it in some cell phone SIM cards. Fortunately, we don't see a lot of that just yet. It's really big in Japan, but it's headed our way. You will find it in some credit cards. Again, not too many just yet. And you'll also find it in mailing labels, tickets and passes. If you go to some of the bigger shows in, let's say, Las Vegas, computer show, for example, National Industry Show, you give you a little name tag, and it's got a little tag in it. And as you walk around, they read that information, and so they know you visited a booth without you having to do a thing. And you'll find it in passports and driver's licenses and badges, particularly in the future, and Canamex is very tied to that. The whole idea of Canamex is going to be based on an international driver's license, and that will replace the need for a national ID. And how many people here are involved in Native American rights issues? The Indians, there are Indian tribes that happen to have their reservations right on the border, and they're having some significant troubles, almost having to draw guns to defend themselves from the Canadians particularly at the border over this issue, because in order for them to be able to cross from one side of the reservation to another, they're supposed to have these RFID equipped driver's licenses, and they issue their own driver's licenses, and they're saying, no, we're not going to put the RFID tag in. And bioimplants, and that is for, in some cases, good reasons. For example, if you wanted to put one into an astronaut or a military person, spy perhaps, and use it as a tool for supporting them, their safety and so forth, that's great. But it's also used as a weapon against targeted individuals. Let's look at RFID for good. Here's an example of a tag that has the device in it. Now the device can be almost any size. In this example, if you see the little peeled back label, it's a pretty good sized device. And what you're really looking at is the antenna. It's just a bit of copper. The actual device itself is so small that a period on the letter I in a typed newsletter could actually be an RFID device. And so they have these little handheld readers and adapters to work with anything. I mean, you can get an adapter for your laptop or your Palm Pilot. In any event, and that's pretty much what they're using there, is a Palm Pilot type device with an adapter on it. And the way it works basically is you have a database of information, and it's coded to the RFID device itself, which is nothing really more than a serial numbered item that has the ability to sense a pulse of energy, which it detects and responds to by emitting a return broadcast of energy, radio frequency signal that contains that serial number. So when you read it, it then goes to the computer database, retrieves the information, and verifies whatever it is the user is trying to verify. So in the case of the medical patient, it's looking up to make sure that that's the patient that's supposed to get the particular treatment that they're about to administer. And that's a good safety thing in the hospital nowadays. Now, smart cards and SIMs are pretty much just memory storage devices. And these you should be familiar with. When you get into your hotel room, you're using one. And when you have a digital camera, you've got a little card in there, you're using one. And you see it in these other technologies here. They're very common. And they don't represent too much of a threat unless they're used in a bad way. The good news here, I guess, is that they're fairly visible, and we usually know they're there. And here's an example or two, actually. Now, smart dust is another thing. How many people know what smart dust is? Well, okay, another interesting education. These are extremely small devices. They can be so small that they float in the air. Unfortunately, that means they're breathable, and they are poisonous. And they are a network sensor array, literally small as dust. Each little individual item is dedicated to a single function. It might be to sense temperature. It might be to sense audio. It might be a functional equivalent of a microphone. But they work as a network or a swarm, a hive intelligence. They relay information from one to another and to a central reporting system, usually triggered by a laser beam. And they can be triggered from as far away as several miles. And these are specifically a spy tool. They're based on nanotech and electromechanical devices used in communications and tracking. They can be used in biomedicine and treatments for some good. For example, they can be designed to test for DNA. Unfortunately, the flip side of that is that once they know what the DNA is, if they don't like that DNA, they can be programmed to do things that are nasty within the body. And we do see them used in bioimplants and prosthetics. So they can be used for good, but they're primarily a spy technology. Now, these technologies can be used for good in a wide variety of ways, and we don't really hear about it. This is just one little industry sector here, and this little chart is something that this particular industry website I went to used to show all of the areas where they were using the technology. So it is becoming very pervasive in industry. And it's not like you and I are going to be able to protest and stop it for this cause. They are getting good use out of it, and they're not going to see the bad uses regardless of how loud we cry about them. We have other tactics available I hope to show you later today. This is an example of how it might look in a network. You'll see the nodes in the middle there represent the individual elements of the smart dust. Each one of those could be sensing a different thing, or they could all be sensing the same things. This works the same way with the RFID. So if you had an assembly line with product going down the chain, it would be able to know exactly where a given unit was at any given point in time and what was happening to it. So it is very useful in the manufacturing environment. I'll take a moment and talk about a scary application done in San Diego, as I recall, in a school, a preschool, for the matter, and they sprinkled the entire classroom with these smart dust items and created this network, and they set up cameras everywhere. There was even a camera on the teacher's head so that they could tell where she was looking. And the smart dust was supposed to study this, the benefit that they used as a cover story, so to speak, was intended to allow them to completely map the complete social interaction of the classroom and analyze on how to better teach. What wasn't said, of course, is that the kids were going to be picking up this smart dust and taking it home because it would stick to their clothing and their hands. And of course, a black van driving by could still receive information from the smart dust. So who knows what the actual covert study was that was in place. There was a similar thing that took place with RFID technology with max factor products in a Walmart. And if they had cameras in Walmart that would track the people who picked up the max factor and put it in their shopping cart, the camera would track them through the store. How serious is that? But what if they'd put the cameras in the rest of the town? Every time you walked down the street and stopped and looked in a store window, maybe they knew that that's where you went. So I think that was probably a covert study within a study. Now, MEMS, MEMS, microelectronic mechanical devices, systems, pardon me, are particularly interesting in terms of good and bad because they can bond with tissue. Some of the newer bioimplants, the ones that targeted individuals particularly fear, are made of this substrate, and once they're in the body, they actually become part of the body, and even with direct surgery, trying to remove them, if you're looking right at it as a surgeon, it looks like flesh. And it's so small anyway that your eyeballs wouldn't recognize it. So this is a very insidious technology when it has to do with the bad use. The good use, of course, is your bioimplants won't be rejected by the body. But there are other aspects of it. Here's one used as a joint implant. This is the aspect that we worry about because, again, it can be associated with understanding what your DNA structure is, and if it doesn't like that DNA, this particular image depicts one thing that bothers me very much. This is the good use of it exampled here, where it can actually dispense medication or antiviral type cures. So this is a good use for it, but also it can be reversed. It can be used to impart a virus itself, or something other, some other thing that would be destructive to the body. Nanotech is really quite the thing. It is the world of things that can't be seen except by an electron microscope. And they are actual machines. They can have electronic and mechanical functions. And I'm sure you've seen some sci-fi stuff based on nanotech. The question is, what small things can a fly see? And this is the functional equivalent of a keyboard switch. This is a gas nozzle with pressure sensors. It's a temperature device, sensing device. And this is a little kind of an actuator. Think of it as a motorized device that would operate, in this case it's designed to operate a mirror. And what is the mirror? The little things sticking up there are the mirrors. This is a smart dust mote. It happens to be attached to a battery, which it does not normally need to be. But those little things sticking up are for the mirror, and that's for laser communication. And those mirrors are adjustable. So let's transition from the good possibilities, and I apologize for having mentioned the bad possibilities prematurely, to those bad possibilities. Oh, here's my plug for the Free Will Society. One of the things that we worry about is how these things can be used as full surveillance net tools. Full surveillance net is when an individual is put under the microscope 24/7. There isn't anything that person does that they don't know, right down to private things in the bathroom or bedroom. Electronic weapons for targeting an individual or for targeting whole groups of people. Aerial denial technology. Take advantage of these techs. We would include voice to skull, where you hear voices in your head. Physical assaults, where you're actually feeling pain or discomfort. And mental incapacitation in general. We talk about organized stalking. Technology is not really used there quite so much today, but I'm starting to see it, and I think we'll see a heck of a lot more of it once they figure out how to mass produce and distribute and teach people how to use it. It is involved with chemicals and drugs, which are also used in targeting. Bioimplants, absolutely. The good news is the Free Will Society. Hopefully, if we can get enough membership, and I invite you to come to the table and join. Just give me your email address. If you'll make a small donation, I've got a free copy of a music album called Alice in America Land. It's got some wonderful music by some crazy guy named Sweeney. And it's politically incorrect mostly, or mushy, if you like love songs. I'll have to talk to my wife about that. And specific technologies, the revolution in military affairs. Anybody heard of that? The idea is that the military is looking at changes in science and social infrastructures around the world, politics in general, and discovering that they need to change the way they do warfare. And part of that, unfortunately, involves political control technology. They are shifting, preparing to shift. The two aspects of RMA that are bad for you and me is they're preparing to shift to a more of a military police than military status. And they have defined that the next major war that they really need to worry about isn't a war with Korea or China, although those are on the table, but something what they call the People's War. And they specifically list the makeup of the people that they're talking about, and they include ex-military, constitutionalists, disenfranchised ex-military, I should have said, and the underprivileged, and there's a couple of others that they add to that list, and it just gives me the impression they're talking pretty much about the most of society. So it looks like they're thinking that at some point there's going to be a large resistance movement in the United States that the military will have to quell. And that's the sort of thing that you'll find in Fatal Rebirth discussed in great detail, including what to do about it. If you're a member of a militia, I particularly recommend you read it. There's the full list. I just missed the poor, that's all. Now, there is an emphasis on surveillance and non-lethal weapons in this RMA, and that includes area denial technology, which I mentioned, tagging, incapacitation, and detention technologies. There is something called the Shoot Americans New World Order Allegiance Questionnaire. Those are the popular descriptions for it. It's been given to multiple military units, and it's basically trying to see how dumb the soldiers are and to see who they can trust if they have to go out and confiscate the guns. One of the questions, I'm paraphrasing, would you be willing to shoot an American who refused to give up his gun? Bioweapons and zoonotic development. These are the ways that we can have a population depopulation. And zoonotics are viruses that come from animal strains of viruses, and they're modified to impact on humans. HIV, swine flu, avian flu, you've heard of these. These are not natural, these are man-made. And we'll hear a little more about that a little later. And of course, we have the biowarfare angle. Now, the good news about RMA is there is something called the Revenge of the Turtle. There's actually another one that I've lost track of my reference on that. It's a little more complex in terms of the name. It's in Fatal Rebirth, and I apologize that I wasn't able to track it down. But there are two different military organizations. They are secret, and the Department of Defense is aware of their existence and would like to find out their entire membership and basically put them away for life or end their lives. Because these are people who have said that if the military tries to take over the government, if there's a martial law and suspension of the Constitution, if they attempt to take over or take away the guns, they will revolt. And they have plans, specific plans. So the thing that we need to know is that there are people in the military who do understand their oath of office, and they will come to our aid. We definitely have to worry about the New World Order, a one world government. In Fatal Rebirth and in MC Realities, I do write about this rather a lot because it has to do with Satanism. If you think about it, Satanism is what? It's the only religion whose purpose is to defeat another religion, Christianity. And it's been around since the beginning. And the Illuminati, which I'm sure you've all heard of, was intending to establish the New World Order, a one world government. Why? To seat the Antichrist. That's the only goal. You sort of heard the basis of the unified conspiracy theory right there. And that is the Illuminati plan, basically destroy the Orthodox religion, get us all fighting between, the Jews and the Islamics and we Christians, count myself, get us fighting with each other, even though we all worship the same God of Abraham. Isn't that silly? And they want to control currency and foster debt beyond payment. You need to sponsor and profit from wars, terrorism, and crime. And they want to build and destroy institutions that have been relied upon. So that's why you're finding everything bankrupting all of a sudden. And it started with the SNL, and it's we've had the biggest financial problems just hit us 1, 2, 3 in the last few years. And of course, create and control education and media. and then finally unite nation groups into the little global sectors, the European Community, North American Union, etc. The biggest one, though, is eugenics. They feel that there's 3.4 billion too many people on the planet, and they need a plan to make us go away. It's really interesting, though. I find that the group must be apparently quite racist, because it just so happens that the 3.4 billion people hardly any of them are white. Now, bloodline royals and the human singularity is something we'll talk about here in just a second, but the Illuminati, the modern day equivalent of it, has families. I'm sure you've heard a lot of the names and can think of a name. Whatever name you're thinking of, yes, probably correct. These are the bloodline royals. The good news is we do outnumber them billions to one. If we organize, they haven't got a chance. That's your job, by the way, organize. Join the Free Will Society, join everything you can, and promote and support. Talk about it to people who do not believe. I have one particular book called The Defensive Field Guide, which is specifically for activists who want to go head-to-head with somebody who does not want to talk to them. Gives you a way to give them a reason to stop and listen. This is the human singularity. I'm going to read this because I can't possibly remember it. And this is from a document, and it's a very scary thing. It says, the description of the document, or the actual organization, just simply known as PMS, funds research by scholars not affiliated with the U.S. government or military. This program is designed to support Proteus USA's charter and promote further discourse, study, and research focusing on the refinement, development, and application of new and energizing futures, concepts, methods, processes, and scenarios. The overreaching goal of its effort is to provide value-added and relevant commentary that will assist strategic and high operational level decision makers, planners, and analysts with outside-the-box considerations and critical analysis of national military and intelligence issues within the joint interagency, intergovernment, and multinational environment. Almost sounds like a good thing, and it sounds like a bunch of educators. Who is it really? Actually, it's the CIA. And this is what you'll find if you read the document, excerpting from it here. What they're talking about is a human singularity, is an ESI. They're talking about a particular type of person, a naturally occurring gifted person, to include mental and physical giants, paranormal or psychic powers, idiot savants, people with mind over matter, remote viewing, mind to mind and mind to machine powers, to include the ability of mind share or intervene with thoughts of others. Chemically or drug enhanced to be impervious to pain, fatigue, fear, deprivations, and climate. Biomechanically enhanced for strength and speed. Genetically altered to include the introduction of animal genetic traits or to suppress or enhance reproductive powers. Includes nanotech, bioimplant, and possibly robotic enhancements. This is the scariest thing you can imagine. And one of the people who's very much behind this was Rumsfeld. He had something called Rumsfeld Mutant Warriors, a program that was underway. So if you've seen these scary sci-fi movies about soldiers that are out of control because they usually start with the idea that they were dead and they brought them back to life. I think they don't need to go that far. They can get plenty of live ones and modify them a lot easier. So this is the scariest thing that's imaginable, and once these people are in place, they're definitely going to use them. You get the clues there. For example, interfere and intervene with the thoughts of others. I'm sorry, I just can't accept it. One of the areas of technology, too, that tie into this, is a very big one, is the Total Information Awareness Office. That was its original name, and this is the chart that they now that they originally started with. And I actually got a copy of the original charter white paper, and it was very clear that the intent was to track every individual's every action, period. However, and then this chart does show you here something very key there. On the left side it says transactional data. And then you see all those little colored drums there. Those represent computers. Those are public and private databases, not government databases. And so you see a long list of things there. When they talk about a transaction, it can be a financial transaction, but just walking through a doorway is a transaction. If there's a sensor there, they'll sense an RFID tag, for example. So they're going to gather and have access to all of that information, and that's shown quite clearly. However, once a few people like myself started talking about this on radio shows and whatnot, and they were also going to put that war criminal Poindexter in charge. We protested about that, so they quickly changed a couple of things. This is their new model. And you'll notice there's some red spigots there added to show, oh, we have to have a warrant. Well, except they already have the back door established. We get the warrant for the things we want to go public with. But if they want to spy on you, they'll still spy on you. They don't need a warrant to do that. Now, the other thing that they changed was the title. It's now Terrorist Information Awareness Office, which means you and I are terrorists, by the way. What allows total information, and why do I bring that up? Basically, it's because everything we've talked about, surveillance technology, satellites, communication monitoring, aerial platforms, they have these little flying things that can, everything from the big ones like the Global Hawk all the way down to things that are multiple versions could fit in the palm of my hand, can be used to spy on you. Data mining, the Promise Backdoor Access software. Basically everything that TIO's chart showed, at the heart of all of that lies the very things that we're talking about here today. And that's a long introduction, but we're talking about a lot of stuff. And it just goes in so many directions like a spider web that I apologize that it had to be so long. I'm going to talk a lot today about Digital Angel. I'm guessing that a lot of you do know what Digital Angel is. IO implant for tracking individuals. They want us all to have one. And it has an RFID device in it. Basically, it can be associated, if you have one of these in you, there are different versions, but the one that they really are interested in gives them the ability to type in a number, and whoever's got that number comes right up on their laptop, right over the internet. And it shows the location through GPS coordinates. This is an actual implant in place. It's known as the Mark of the Beast. If there is somebody from CIA here today, they're going to run back and tell them that I broke some secrets. I am going to expose things today that they do not want you to know. It could end up getting me sued by the company that makes it, but I don't think so, because the CIA never sues when they're maligned, which they get a lot of. There's a nude beach. Actually, it's a whole nude island, and when you go there, they offer to implant you so that you don't have to carry around your credit card. And Smart Dust, as I told you, it can float. They have some versions which their shape actually changes, and when it changes to one particular shape, it rises. Changes to another shape, it drops. And since it can send back information about air pressure, it knows what altitude it's at. So whoever's operating it can literally operate it by remote control. And if they want to move it from one place to another and they know the wind destination, they just lift it up into the wind, move it over, and then lower it. Very scary stuff. You can buy a Smart Dust kit. It's a commercial product. I believe it's about $2,500 for a starter kit. This one is a little more expensive. This is exactly what they used in the classroom. Basically, it is more dangerous than RFID to someone it's used against because the entire location can be dusted and it can be airborne. It can be pulled at distance by laser as well as radio. And it is highly specialized so that it can be custom tailored to the need. And it migrates with you. It gets on your clothing and whatnot. I had a lady who told me she went to the airport and went through security, and when she gave them her name, they made her walk through a machine, and she felt a puff of air. And then when she got home and she was combing her hair, all these little tiny black things fell out of her hair. I wish she had kept them and mailed them to me. Unfortunately, it can be inhaled and ingested, and it's very dangerous. The good news, however, is it's hard to recover, and it does leave its own evidence, so they are generally not going to use it against you and me. It's going to be used for very specialized targets. SIMs, on the other hand, are the data depositories. They are easily co-opted. The ones you already own, the ones for your camera, they can be used against you in an intelligence operation or a spying operation, especially if they are enabled with RFID. And the good news, however, is they are a containable factor because you know about them, the ones in your possession, and they are fairly large. I mean, they're memory cards, basically. The ones you have to watch out for are the ones that are in your credit cards. How many people have a credit card that has a transparent portion of your credit card? Well, that's good. Not too many. Those contain these devices. If you feel you're a targeted individual and you have such devices, just wrap them in tin foil. Now, SIMs and MEMS. MEMS are a triple threat because they merge the traits of RFID and SmartDust, or they can. They add a biological interface capability. They can use to be sensed and report biological states for DNA and blood and tissue analysis, and we've heard about that. Bond with the tissue and become part of the body and impact biological states. They can alter DNA, impart virus and toxins. This is very troublesome. It's all too easy to insert a bioimplant or a MEMS technology device while the person is asleep or while they're unconscious in a medical procedure, even while they're awake, as we'll see in a moment. But the good news is they are overly exotic, and they again have to be custom tailored to the application, so you're not likely to be hit with one of these unless you're a very special target. Now, RFID, on the other hand, is going to be much more pervasive. This is a tracking bracelet that is used with criminals. People are getting out of jail on a parole. And that allows, it doesn't have to be this obvious. It can be a very small device planted in your clothing or whatever, but it allows you basically to track anyone, anywhere, anytime. They even have watches that you can buy. In fact, some of them look really nice. These are kind of dumb looking, but these are for kids. And they have the tracking devices in them. These particular watches are designed to interface with point of sale systems. So you don't have to carry your credit card with you again. So that's in case you're not going to the nude beach. And if you're not a fancified spender, it doesn't matter because the products you sell have the tags. RFID registers will have the ability to track credit card purchases to you. You ever wonder why they're giving you these discount club cards at the grocery stores? Now they got a database that it ties you to your card, ties you to the RFID items that you purchase by serial number. You may have seen this in a few stores. This is coming. It'll be quite common. A little computer to help you shop. Just picking up something off the shelf brings that item closer to this, and it knows that you handled it. Money can track you. Throw your 20s into a microwave and this is what you get. This is the defense for RFID. Microwave them, they die. They explode. This is an example of an assortment of RFID readers. The device held at the left is not specifically an RFID reader. That it could be with no modifications whatsoever. That device really is intended to read cell phone signals from a distance. It's a freak, you know, a black box freak kind of a guy. He's not a criminal. That's why I've got his face masked out. But that device is used to target individuals with political control technology, but it also can be used to track RFID devices. The thing about that is it really amplifies the signal. It can be done at quite the distance. It's a cell phone signal they can read from several miles away, well beyond the normal range of a cell phone tower. Now, RFID tags can be an interesting threat. In the future, this is not so much currently the technology, but the idea is, let's say you toss an empty pack of smokes over the fence and a crime is committed there. The police find that package of smokes, they're going to tie you to that crime scene, and you're going to become part of that investigation. And if you have RFID tags in your home, a black van can come by and read all those tags and know rather a lot, especially if they go back with the serial numbers and look at the databases. This is how the TIAO will know exactly what you've done. And the most interesting thing about this is they can create a psychological and behavior profile and predict what you're going to do. If they want to pick you up, they'll know that you normally buy your cigarettes on Monday morning at the gas station, and they'll be waiting for you at the gas station. Items that you carry would be useful when you go through a doorway that's got a reader. They'll know you went through, of course. And if they have a watch list set up, then the gateway can be programmed to report your activity. Otherwise, they just have it in a database for looking at as they wish. What's interesting about that, too, is that if you give an item that has a tag on it to somebody else, that tag, in essence, tells them that you shared. So it knows about two people now, plus the fact that you've shared. So it is established an association between the two of you. So now they can be put under surveillance too. And planted tags. Now, if I want to deliberately track a person and I don't have the time or the resources to know what RFID tags they already have, I just put one on them. The good news is they are easy to kill, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more later. And they can also be co-opted. In other words, you can use them against the other people. If you have readers yourself, you can take advantage of the technology as well. And you can spoof them. You can literally duplicate the serial number and create a copy. And then by placing that somewhere else, you can misdirect. Cell phone tracking, we're going to run a little short on time, so I probably will just skip through this. And this is an important part. Just because they have the technology in place, does that mean they'll use it? Part of that depends on who they are, and you know, there's several different things here about the reasons that they might choose to do that. I'll let you read those if you wish. Sometimes they're going to be a CIA front. And in my book, I do talk a lot about, in The Professional Paranoid, how to spot a CIA front. I've actually exposed several and shut them down. They don't like me very much, but they kind of have to respect me. I have them by the gonads in a couple of places. But these particular reasons here, if I can synchronize my finger with the screen, there we go. These are the reasons or the clues of a CIA front. We're going to see these at play here very shortly when we take a look at the Digital Angel Corporation. Do they do business under endless names? They have hinky finances, no real effort to earn income, or they have a bogus income, actual operations not as publicly stated, hidden location or ownership type shell games, principal players have no credentials. And Digital Angel is also known as VeriChip or ADS, Applied Digital Science Systems. And what other names? Well, nearly half a dozen name changes since they founded in 1993, and a blizzard of acquisition and mergers, over 50 in all, so more than 50 different names. Leadership in the industry since 1945, they claim, but they were only created in 1993. That was a clue that led me to the real history of their technology. They are the only ones doing quite what they're doing, so I don't know what industry they were talking about, but it makes awfully good PR. What do they really do? Well, they do what we say. They're manufacturing these bioimplants, and they want to put them in our bodies. But they neither invented nor manufacture the implants, and the 50 firms that they have do at least 30 disjointed things in 12 industries. What's really interesting, though, there's only 1,700 employees total, many of them working for multiple companies, which means they're really shell companies. They're not real. And who are the people? The founding president, Scott Silverman, did not found it. He joined in the communications subsidiary in 1995 and was rapidly promoted to become head of his division, even though he had just a year earlier been a lawyer in private practice. And it's a neat trick. CEO Randolph Geisler was actually R&D vice president of Destron Fearing, where he worked on flea powder. Somehow I became president and COO of the firm, that's at Destron, that is at Digital Angel, with the only Keyman insurance policy. Even though he had left Destron Fearing to work with Digital Angel, only in the end to find out that the two companies had quietly merged, with hardly even mentioned anywhere but the SEC, which is where I found it. I did find eventually to their credit, a press release where they mentioned it. But it's not on their website without a thorough search. This is the interesting one. Director of Medical Application is Dr. Richard Seelig. Now, he is actually a bariatric surgeon, liposuction. I don't know if that qualifies one to deal with implants. And almost all the remaining corporate officers are former key people from Destron Fearing itself, or HID Global, or a sister firm called Assa Abloy, which is European. And those firms altogether push RFID as key elements in personal identification systems, and more to the point, in financial transaction tracking systems, the inventory management systems, the traditional uses of RFID. So these people are globalists, and they intend this to basically rule the world. They are in a position to do it. Now, for the answers to these last two questions, where do they get their customers, and who do they work with or for, really, we need to do a couple of things. We need to follow the money and know the source. So this is really interesting, because you look at their revenue, their official revenue list. Their civilian contracts is $1 million. Bonneville Power did $13 million, and the military, $24 million. Well, those are kind of interesting, but it sort of paints the picture that this is not necessarily a mainstream product. They're kind of more interested in the government. Or maybe we should say it's the other way around. The government's more interested in bioimplants. And we need to know the sources of this. There are some unlisted contracts, which include Metro Risk Management, which is a CIA front, which I expose in my book. The list of 1,000 CIA fronts is in the Defensive Field Guide, and they are in there. And my first book, The Professional Paranoid, the very first edition, was book vanished. Somebody went around buying them up for $75 a copy, and you can't get them. I mean, I went on Coast to Coast to talk about things and the book and so forth and so on. That very day, somebody made a single purchase of every single copy that was available. So I publish my own books now. They can buy all they want. I'm hoping. They already owe me $1 million for stopping terrorism, which I talk about in Fatal Rebirth. I won't brag about it here. But in any event, Metro Risk Management is a very interesting outfit. It has a sister company in Europe too, And these two firms advertise that they have databases with all kinds of demographics and other information on 92% of the American populace. This is your government selling you as market information, and who knows what else. And since they are the ones that are buying, what was it? Oops, I lost it. 73 million bioimplants. Makes me rather nervous. There are 4 contracts for $7 million which are intelligence suspect because they're in other countries and I know less about them. I can only go by just the nature of their name. They just sort of sound spooky, not very conclusive. But they also sold one for $5 million to themselves, complete with signed paperwork, you know, just like it was, you know, filled out an order form and a contract, the terms of payment and everything. I just don't get it. What is the genesis of it? Digital Angel's partner is Raytheon, formerly Hughes Aircraft. Digital Angel's primary government contractor is Bonneville Power Administration, which was very tied to Enron, and everybody remembers Enron. Enron was formerly Hughes Tools. Digital Angel primary medical customer is the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. And Hughes Holdings were divested to CIA control at his death and before. TIA became various CIA air carrier services. We just talked about the hospital. Hughes Tools we talked about, and Raytheon we talked about. But Hughes Identification Systems was the inventor of the original RFID chip in 1945. It wasn't a chip then, though. It was a huge thing. But they partnered with Destron Fearing, who is now merged with Digital Angel. And Hughes Satellite provides the tracking services for them. So my question is, who really pulls the string? Are we talking about Applied Digital Systems and very few, a handful of multiplexed businessmen? Very multiplexed. Are we talking about Destron Fearing and a web of globalist firms? Are we talking about Hughes Industry and clever puppeteers, or CIA shadow masters, or perhaps another option? And how might they track us if they intend? If we assume they do. RFID implants have scary tracking options. There's already idiots who have volunteered to have themselves implanted, and they are pushing. There's advertising in various sources to do this. And targeted individuals can be tagged covertly while you're unconscious or in a medical procedure, while you're asleep through covert entry and gassing, and while awake by sniper fire. I'll show you the gun. And groups can be tagged by smart dust as well. And targeted groups can be tagged by serum injection. So if there's a virus scare and we have mandatory injections, I have a feeling that there's going to be a list, and people whose name appear on that list will get a slightly different injection. Just conjecture, mind you. That's based on rather a lot of what I call snippets of information. The entire populations can be tagged by national ID log. 5 minutes? Oh, well, we're running out. Well, there's your gun. Gas operated. Actually, at this point, we probably could easily break this down. The rest of the presentation was going to take a look at zoonotics and bioimplants in a very specific way that they tie to this. So I think we'll go ahead and close it up. I'm sure we would like to get some questions. Is that 5 minutes including questions? Okay. Maybe we'll take one question. Go ahead. You have a Macintosh. I appreciate that.
Test 1, 2.
Pleasure first.
Little volume. Give me a little volume. Test 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. Good. Wait a minute. Excuse me, ma'am. You have to speak into the microphone. Otherwise, people can't hear what you're trying to say.
That's right over here. Yeah.
What we'd like to do for people who want to ask questions, please raise your hand. We'll come to you with the microphone. Okay?
We have time for more than one?
Oh, of course.
Oh, good, good.
Please, questions only. No, you know.
This is my first time here. My name is Joyce Anastasia, and I'm just surprised that you're up here speaking and you're presenting all this information, and I wonder how are you protected, and how are the people in this room protected regarding all the stuff you presented, and I've already experienced many of these things, so.
Okay, and that's the kind of things I read about in my first series of books, the Professional Paranoid series. They are how-to defense guides for persons like yourself and myself. It arose out of my targeting, and my defenses were successful. I am still targeted in ways, and I still deal with it, and it's really good. I'm glad that they target me because I learn more about the technology and allows me to update. I've already gone through second edition now of MC Realities and the third edition of the first book. So I'm glad that they choose to continue to target me, but I'm also glad that I am able to, so far at least, continue to do well in defense.
Hi, my name is Ramin.
Yeah, I'll let them run the microphone as to who is going to.
I wanted to ask the following question. I asked this almost of all the presenters at these conferences. What do you suppose the end game is? I mean, that's the most important piece. So tagging people, we do know already that they're spraying us up in the skies and they're trying to reduce population. What is the end game as far as you're concerned?
That's what the question about endgame. In fact, I use the term endgame scenario in Fatal Rebirth. It is a book that is 4 volumes, actually. 2 volumes had to do with history from 1947 forward, the current time frame of terrorism, and then 2 possible futures. One if we do the right thing and one if we don't. And the endgame scenario, ultimately for me, I described as the seating of the Antichrist. For this country, they need to have a declared martial law so they can take away the guns and put into place a new constitution and establish, not too long after that, the North American Union. Similar things are taking place around the world simultaneously, so ultimately you end up with several unions which can then be put under control of the Antichrist.
Okay, I'm very sorry, but we're limited with time, so we're just going to take one more question. And please feel free to go by the speakers' tables, and you can ask as many questions as you like after this presentation.
And I have something else there I would like to mention. You will see the world's first ergonomic notebook. It's just on display. I don't sell them. You can find them at Amazon.com. Just type in ergonomic and notebook. It is really rather interesting for writing. Less tension and stuff, but it's associated with a book, the world's first ergonomic book, much better, easier to read, lots of benefits, and that happens to be my book. It's called In Minus Times. It's my first science fiction. And so, yes, please come by. Do you have one more question?
Yes, I have a question. What about all the people that are taking prescription drugs and those drugs being used as a vehicle to get inside?
I'm not sure I heard the second part of the second half of the question.
It had to do with you take a pill. Are you then injecting yourself with a tracking device?
That would be potentially one way to introduce it into the body. That would require, however, that they had access to your specific pharmacy. It wouldn't be too difficult for them to arrange that if they wanted to go out of their way, but there's too many other easy ways to get it into you. And they need, as far as probably the real purpose of the question, they probably want a way to get it into a lot of people, not just one individual, but that would be a good way to do a particular targeted individual. Thank you very much. Thank you.